Hi, folks. Welcome in. I'm Alicia, and welcome to my Operational Innovations channel, where I focus on process tips, techniques, and strategies to help you level up in the area of project management, product ownership, and small business operations. So today's topic is from the Small Business Health Check series. It's from my top 10 tips list. It's the number 2 topic, workspace. Now, in addition to my video on this, when you go out to the channel, what you're going to see is a couple of videos that have the same thumbnail. And so one of them is my perspective, and if you see multiple of that same thumbnail, those are the interviews on that same topic. And what I appreciate about that is we're bringing in other perspectives. You're not just hearing from me, you're hearing from other people that have other businesses and other industries on the same topic, because all of these things really matter as small business operators. So I am so excited today to bring in a different perspective, and I'm very excited to introduce Nicole Ward. So she and I met, when did we meet? In February. Was it February of this year?
Actually, it was. I feel like it was last year, and then
What?
we saw each other again in February of this year.
Oh, right. You are so right. You know, gosh, February feels like it was a billion years ago.
It feels like it was last year. Yeah.
It does feel like it was last year. Well, I'm so glad to have you here. And when we first met and I found out Nicole's last name, I'm like, now, wait a minute now. We might be related. We haven't quite figured that part out yet, but her last name is Ward. My mother's last name is Ward. And I don't know a whole lot of words other than my mom and now Nicole. And so one of these days we might find that we are related, and that would be fantastic and exciting, wouldn't it? Yeah, so we met last year in the fall. Her fiance, Brandon, and I are in the same type of work. We're both Agile coaches, and I was taking an ORSC class, and that's where we met. And so we synced up. I found out about Nicole's business, and I'm really excited that you're here today, Nicole, and I'm so excited to bring your wisdom to our community. Welcome, and thank you for joining the channel.
Thank you so much for having me, Alicia. This is really exciting. I love what you're doing. And then just this topic of workspace, it really had me be reflective and to do some introspection on just the notion of workspace and even how it's shifted with our current state of being more than most of us at home and working from that space. So, yeah.
You know what, you bring up a really important point, and we will likely get into this when we get into some of these questions, but the current situation right now, I imagine that some people never really thought about their workspace. Like if you work in an office and you have a cubicle and you go into your cubicle or in your office and you work and you've done it for years, and then now all of a sudden you're at your dining room table and you're like, hey, wait a minute. And then you got your kids running around in back of you. I just imagine that people probably took for granted their workspace. So this is a really, really important topic.
It is. It is. It's not something that, depending on what your profession was, that it's become something that's more like background noise, that you're in your office and you're just kind of there. Something as in terms of what I do as a therapist, workspace has been like almost at the forefront. Even as a student, they talked about our workspace and what it would be like and just all those kind of things because it's important. So now having this shift, which for me is almost like a boundary shift, I'm more cognizant of it, and my clients who are used to workspace being more like background noise are now really having to really attend to it and noticing what comes up for them when they are at their dining room table.
So there's a lot of juicy things in what you just said, and I want to double click on some of that stuff. So let's go ahead and jump in. So tell us, Nicole, what's your business? What business are you in?
I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. I've been practicing for 15 years now in terms of seeing clients. And this is actually a career shift, a second career for me. I'm also a licensed attorney in the state of California. So I went from one helping realm to this one, which is really my passion. And right now I work as a solo practitioner. So I actually run my own business doing direct mental health, which is seeing individual adults as well as those that are in relationships
Yeah.
So couples or just other relationship structures.
Yeah.
So what I say is that it's mental health, wellness, and relationships in all phases and stages.
Mhm.
And with the relationships and the mental health and the wellness, it also lends to, I do workshops, I facilitate group discussions. I'm actually really big on workplace wellness as well. So that's where some of my consulting comes into, is consulting with organizations and business around just what their wellness practices are, how they're addressing mental health, how they're addressing any kind of challenges that come up, like right now with where we're at in the pandemic. That's been something that I've consulted around, as well as the current state and momentum in dismantling systemic racism. That's something else that I've been consulting on as of late. So, and it still relates to wellness and relationships, because it's how we're relating as individuals within our workspace and being able to bring our whole person in. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. That is awesome. And as you're talking, I'm reminded of the fact that as a coach, I like to have partnerships with therapists, because once the relationship that I'm in with a client, once I have some sense about them needing additional support outside of the coaching realm, I like to have a cadre of people that I can refer to. So I'm like, bright idea here. So we'll have to definitely chat about that after we talk about this. So awesome. So you've been at it for 15 years. So let's jump into this workspace thing. You mentioned a couple of things here earlier about the importance of workspace and how you're noticing that it's important now. And then you also talked about how when you were a student, they talked about workspace. So where do you work right now?
So right now I'm working from home. I did also start renting like a virtual office, so that if I do ever need to go into a actual office space to do telehealth, which is I'm doing only virtual sessions, I still have that space too if I need
Yeah,
to change of scenery. And
yeah.
that's new. I recently relocated my business, so my workspace changed states. Went from California to Virginia, and so there's been a lot of shifts around workspace. Went from having an office downtown LA that was really in the crux of the city. I could see the library from the window. The clients had a view, and that's really was important because, as I mentioned briefly in the introduction, being a student, we talked about workspace as a therapist because you want the therapeutic space to feel comfortable, inviting, and safe,
Yeah,
as well as there's just ways that you want to have it set up, even sometimes for safety's sake, right? Like, where are you sitting? Where's the client sitting? Are you, too close to them to where they feel like, you're in their personal bubble?
yeah.
Just all those kind of things. Can they see you? Like, how are you, positioned? So all those things come into the workspace. Are there too many personal items in your workspace? That's something that therapists kind of think about. Like, I wouldn't have pictures of my family or my fiance or anything else like that in there, but you still want to be authentic and bring yourself into the space. So it's just this kind of delicate balance and dance that you do with the workspace.
Boy, so much in that, very rich. It almost sounds like it almost sounds like setting up a set, like for a movie set where you're putting things in a particular place and there's a meaning and and it matters and there's so much, of a delicate balance about how you arrange things. That is really interesting. And I can very much imagine how certain things could be very distracting and not contribute to that safe space. So that really, really matters. And so you did mention that you had a recent shift. That's a pretty big shift to go from one side of the country to the other. So what would you say are some advantages to your workspace?
Well, right now, the advantage is there isn't a commute. So,
Yeah, that's nice.
and I didn't feel, I really feel like I didn't feel the workplace shift as shocking as it would have been if I was still practicing from the downtown LA office to then
Yeah,
moving to a Virginia office,
yeah,
because now it's just me still acclimating to being in the home space.
Sure.
So that's been that was the biggest adjustment in March when I decided, because I actually decided before we received our safe at home
Uh-huh.
orders,
Yeah.
to move my practice to telehealth only.
Uh-huh.
And at that point I thought, oh, okay, it's going to be for a couple of weeks, but then it became
Surprise, surprise.
well, then it became indefinite, and I'm not going to keep moving the
Right.
line for clients. So I was just like, until further notice. But
Right.
so then it was just a matter of moving laptop from one house to the next. And that actually felt better. It didn't feel as shocking or as jarring.
Yeah.
And then I usually have like an interesting background behind me. So clients have still been able to enjoy the
Yeah.
space, so to speak. It's been either the drawings that you see right now
Yeah.
or the Avengers. So
Yeah.
that's been kind of fun for clients.
Yeah. 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 I love that. So you mentioned what was important about your workspace for your clients. What's important about your workspace for you?
For me, it's the same sense of really being able to feel comfortable in there and that
Yeah.
it reflects me, but
Yeah.
also being able to have that boundary. So this has been an extreme shift for me,
Yeah.
who it's very personal to work from home. So
Yeah.
being able to still maintain that sense of this is about you and not
Yeah.
about me. So whenever there's
Yeah.
like internet things or people ringing the doorbell in the very beginning of all of this, or me
Fun
having to
part.
like pause for a second,
Yeah.
that it was been a delicate balance for me and a learning curve of like, okay, I'm going to develop this rhythm of where the
Yeah.
distractions are not going to be as distracting,
Yeah.
and just being able to still have a separation, because that's something that I really needed, and
Yeah.
actually most people need.
Yeah.
So having that separation has been able to build it into my home space, so it doesn't feel like I live in a therapy office.
Yeah. Right, right, right. That is so interesting because, I think what's happened in the early stages of this, when people, were kind of shot out of their office and they were now at their dining room tables and TV trays in their bedrooms and all these different sort of very personal home spaces. I think that early on, to your point, this idea of distractions, doorbells ringing, dogs, kids, doing whatever kids are doing. I think there's more grace around that now. People
Yeah.
aren't so like, jarred by hearing somebody's dog bark or hearing the doorbell ring or seeing somebody's kid. I was on a call the other day and this guy was, he was sitting forward, obviously in his office, and in the back, I could see his daughter just like having like just a dance party behind him. Now, I don't know if he didn't know she was back there, but I just thought that's hilarious, and it just is, and
It just is.
it's the humanity
Yes.
of us being humans and working. And this is part of who we are, so yeah, interesting. So what would you say are some disadvantages to just this idea of workspace for you now?
So again, the disadvantage, one of them is that I have to create that separation instead of it being more of a natural one. So
Yeah.
that's been, for me, the biggest disadvantage. And then also I like the interaction, the in-person interaction. The
Yeah.
energy is different on a screen. It's not that it's good or bad, it's just
Yeah.
different.
Just
And
different.
so,
Yeah.
and I have a preference. So that's another one of being at home, is that not being able to have necessarily that same interaction,
Yeah.
especially when clients might be in a more of a emotional state, like or dysregulated.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, here's what I'm really appreciating just listening to you talk about sort of the orchestration and the design of your space to make sure that your clients have, a positive, safe experience for you. Just is so meaningful to me to hear that you have such care about this and this is such an important thing. So, your business is your type of business, and that's different than my type of business and other people's types of business. But what are some tips that you might give to a solopreneur, a single operator, business owner, small business operator, really about this idea of workspace?
Sure. So one is to set your space, right? To be able to have as much as possible, because I know sometimes you have to be flexible, but a
Yeah.
designated work area. There are a lot of tips that were out there from people in terms of working from home. This is a little bit different because we are working from home during a pandemic. So there's a specific reason that we're at home.
Yeah.
So as much as possible, being able to create some routine around, okay, this is my designated space, having something in there that, represents like, maybe work, like, or something that you have as symbolic to work, so that that there's a difference between when you sit at, even if it's at your table, like right now I'm at our dining table, I can see the kitchen, but I have my notebook next to me, I have like my pen next to me, there's a water bottle off camera, and those are things that would be next to me in the office, like my calendar. So it's having those things to kind of help your mind cue to, okay, this space is somehow different, even though it's in the home. So that would be the first one. And the second one would be to have it in a space that you can maneuver. So don't put yourself in a corner to where you can't like get out. You need to be able to get out and move. And that's going to help with the sense of not feeling trapped, because some people are starting to feel a little bit trapped. And being able to do that. And if possible, if you can see outside, that would be another tip. So that would be tip number 3, is if you have some sort of nature near you. If you don't have a window, even having a plant next to you would be something that could be helpful as well. So just really trying to create that there's a difference about that space, as well as that it's comfortable for you as well.
Yeah. Those are great tips. And, it's interesting. I hadn't really thought about that, this idea of having a view. So having a view is super important to me. Very, very important. So the house that we used to live in had this amazing view off the back of like the whole San Diego, Mission Valley area. And I don't know if I realized how important view was until we moved into that house. and so from there, I find that it's really important for me to have that, to your point, being able to look out, see nature. I'm really inspired by a view. I'm not sure I haven't quite made the connection of what that is for me, but I'm just really, and the bigger the view, the more inspired I get. So I really think that that's important. And I love the idea that if you don't have that, get a plant or something and have some greenery, but have that nature as a part of your, what you can look at. Boy, those are great, great tips. Well, thank you so much, Nicole. This has really been fantastic. Where can people find out more about you and your practice?
Oh, great. Thanks, Alicia. So it's my name, www.NicoleMWard.LMFT@.com. So that's where my website is. And then it's Nicole LMFT 12 on the social media. So on Twitter, on Facebook, and on Instagram.
Awesome. Well, great. And I'll get all of that great stuff from you, and I will put it down in the comments below so that people can you're just a click away if they want to get more information from you. Well, thank you so much for that. I think these tips were great. I appreciate you sharing your experience. This was fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia.
You're welcome. So that's it, folks. Another perspective on this idea of workspace. What resonated for you? What tips do you have? Maybe you've got some things that you've been trying out during this really interesting time of COVID-19 and this pandemic. Would love it if you'd share your input, share your insights, your tools, your tips. Put any of that down in the comments and share with us what's worked for you in this area of workspace. As small business operators, listen, we're all in this together, and the more we share, the stronger we get as communities. And frankly, considering how things are right now, it's going to be the small business operators that really pull this economy back up. So share anything that you have that can help another person. So thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Please stay tuned for anything else that we've got coming up in our top 10 tip series. And actually, you'll be looking forward to seeing our final tip. The number 10 tip is coming up this week, an attitude of gratitude. So look out for that and all of the other interviews on some of the topics in this series. So if you like this video, I invite you to like, I invite you to subscribe, and any sort of engagement that you can do, I really appreciate it because it helps the algorithm, it helps my videos to get seen. So like, subscribe, share, any of that, it really means a lot to me as a creator. I appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing you next time.